Well, we have a bunch of people in Congress that have made a lifetime career of saying yes. I understand it. We run for office around here. We want everyone to be happy with us. We want everyone to love us. We don't want to disappoint anyone. We don't want there to be controversy about the decisions we make. And so how do we avoid the controversy? We say yes. We say yes. And we've said yes, and yes, and yes, and yes, and yes, and yes, and yes, until we find ourselves at this point in our history where our unwillingness to say no, our unwillingness to embrace controversy and political risk has led us to an economic brink, a place where if we don't do something that's going to make some people angry, that's going to cause some negative ads to be run against us, that we really aren't doing our job as stewards. And that's all we are here. We're passing through. We aren't entitled to these jobs. We've borrowed these jobs. They belong to the American people. I've noticed some of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, we're going to cut, and now it's all bubbling up. All the people say, no, you can't cut our subsidy. No, you can't cut our subsidy. You can't cut the oil company's subsidy. You can't cut a farm program. You can't cut this. You can't cut that. Everyone is coming out of the woodwork to protect the spending that is embraced by our bad habit of saying yes. So that's why this bill is necessary. This is like telling Congress you've got to be better parents. And if you can't muster the courage to say no, these cuts are going to happen anyway. I go here because I deeply believe that it is necessary for our country. We cannot get control of the deficit if we do not control spending. The deficit is like your monthly budget and not having enough money to come in to meet your monthly expenses. And we talk about the deficit on an annual basis. How much money is the government bringing in and how much money is going out? And when more is going out than coming in, we have a deficit. Now, what happens to that deficit every year? It goes on our debt. It's like a family's mortgage. But instead of us paying down the mortgage every year, we keep adding to the mortgage every year. Now it's time for us to look at long-term discipline and what we can do to get our country on a glide path where we no longer are precariously on the edge of not being the strongest economic power in the world. Our deficits are unsustainable, and our debt is out of control. This bill takes a very measured approach, gives us time to figure things out. It's not like the ridiculous proposal over in the House that we're going to cut $2.5 trillion this year. Anybody who thinks that's going to happen, I've got like a tutu you need to wear down the hall tomorrow. That is a ridiculous proposal. That's impossible to do. But this bill, this is possible and responsible. This puts us on a glide path to say to the American people that our spending is going to be capped at a certain percentage of our economic activity in this country. That is possible, and it is responsible, and we should do it. Let's be honest about how we got here. The biggest factor in our deficits the last 2 years is our poor economy. I know. You would think it's the stimulus. You would think it's TARP. It's not. Political cheap shots, but not true. The biggest fiscal hole that we are facing is because of the poor economy. The biggest increase in spending in the last 2 years? Well, you would think it was the auto bailouts, or you would think it was a bank bailout, or you would think it was the stimulus, or it's not. You know what the biggest increase in spending was over the last 2 years? Unemployment benefits, because of our bad economy. Anyone who understands economics and understands the balance sheet of the United States government knows this problem was not the stimulus. 1/3 of the stimulus was tax cuts. Last time I looked, unpaid for tax cuts was the way of the world. 1/3 of the stimulus was tax cuts. And another third of it almost was unemployment benefits. That's not the problem. We've got to make sure these programs, Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, are stable and secure for my children and their children. If we can't agree even on the modest measures like the 3-year discretionary spending cap that Senator Sessions and I have been pushing for over a year, I question whether we have the discipline to do the hard work. Getting control of spending is very, very hard. But we have to do it, and we have to do it now. It drives people crazy when we're running deficits and we're passing appropriations bills with $15 billion worth of earmarks. I've been working hard to try to clean up all this waste. We've been working on contract management. I've never requested an earmark. I've voted against every omnibus appropriations bill that has come to the floor since I've been a senator. And I've worked hard for the last year with Senator Sessions to cap spending, and now I look forward to working hard with Senator Corker and many of my friends in the Republican Party to work on the Corker-McCaskill bill to put a cap long-term on spending in the federal government. As I say, this is a bold step, but it's a price I'm willing to pay. It's a price I'm willing to pay for my country, and more importantly, it's a price I'm willing to pay for my grandchildren.